Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the UCD International Pre-Departure Google Hangout. And thank you so much for so many of our viewers for joining us this afternoon from UCD. My name is Lorraine Woods. I am the UCD International South Asia Manager. Today I'm joined by some of my colleagues. Please do keep sending some of your questions in to us. What we're going to do first of all is I'll ask my colleagues to introduce themselves, and then we will begin by going through some of the questions. I see we do have a lot of questions already submitted, but please do keep the questions coming into us. So maybe I'll start with Preena. I'll ask Preena to introduce herself.
Hello, hi, my name is Preena. I'm a recent graduate from UCD. I studied biotechnology master's degree here. So if you have any questions about student life or about Ireland in general, I can help you from a student perspective.
Hi everybody, I'm Carl Lusby. I'm the International Student Advisor, and I understand there's maybe a few visa questions in, so I can answer quite a number of the questions in relation to visas and immigration.
Hi, my name is Siobhan. I'm an International Recruitment Assistant here in UCD International. I can help you with any questions to do with orientation, accommodation or registration.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you to the panel. What we might start with is just some next step advice from myself. If you haven't submitted your final documents or you're waiting on final documents, I would advise you, if you haven't accepted your offer in the university, to please do accept your offer as soon as possible. We are coming to a point of time during the year where programs are starting to fill up. And if you accept your place on our program, even if it's a conditional accept and pay your deposit, it does secure your place on the program. I've met with many students this week, and some students hadn't taken this next step. So that would be my very first piece of advice to any students who haven't done that yet. Please do accept your place on the UCD program. I'm going to start with some of the questions. I do see a lot of questions around visas and orientation. But maybe I might just start with some questions around orientation. So I do see some students are asking, when does orientation start and when does the on-campus accommodation open? So maybe Siobhan, do you want to just start with that question maybe?
Yeah, orientation starts around the 1st of September and it will continue until around the 30th of September. On-campus accommodation is open now, and if any postgraduate students want to apply, there are still some spaces left. So you should have a link to that, but if in your email. But if you have any further questions, you can email internationaladmissions@ucd.ie.
Perfect. Yeah, I do see Siddhartha, one of the students, is asking when the on-campus accommodation is open. So as Siobhan said, it will be open from the 1st of September if you are living on campus. And we will speak a little bit about off-campus accommodation later as well. But I have a question here from student David, who is asking, in how many installments can I pay my tuition fees? So this is important maybe that we cover how to pay your fees and then how many installments. So David, you don't say whether you're a postgraduate and undergraduate student, but I presume you're postgraduate because this is a session aimed at postgraduate students. Maybe Siobhan, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about paying the fees?
Yeah, you can pay your fees for postgraduate in 3 installments. So you need to pay the majority of it first. I think it's over €6,000 to start. That's just for visa requirements, and then you can pay the next 2 installments around Christmas and around springtime to complete your fees.
Just to add to that, the college wants you to pay in 3 installments. That's the arrangements as far as the college is concerned. But as Siobhan said, immigration authorities expect that you will have 6,000. If you're looking for a visa, if you're applying for a visa, you need to have 6,000 paid prior to applying for the visa. It isn't enough to just have your 500 deposit paid. Because I've been getting a few calls, a few emails during the week in relation to that, and that's why I want to stress that you must pay 6,000 because it's an immigration requirement to get an entry visa. For those of you coming from places like the United States, Brazil, etc., you don't require a visa, so the same stipulation is not there for you.
Yep, no, that's perfect. Yeah. There are some questions around visas. So maybe, Carl, if you want to just speak in general about visa requirements and some of the issues that students maybe face, and then any of your tips. And then if we don't cover it in kind of the general information, I'll go through some of the questions, but maybe that might be the easiest thing to do.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, for all of you, because I get a lot of emails as well from America where students are asking me about the visa requirements, and they look up the website and they see that there's 6,000 mentioned, and they see a visa to get into Ireland, etc. So I'll just talk for a minute about non-EU, non-visa required students. And you don't ever require a visa if you come from places like Canada, the United States, Brazil, a number of other countries, in Malaysia, for example. But what you get when you come to Ireland is you get a residence permit, and it's called a GNIB card. And GNIB stands for the Garda National Immigration Bureau. So what happens to all of you is that when you arrive at the airport, you should have in your hand luggage your offer letter showing that you've been offered and have accepted a place in UCD. If any of you, they don't usually look for to see what your financial position is, but if any of you, for example, from the United States are going to have financial aid, you may as well have that information with you in your hand luggage. The same if anyone has paid any kind of fees, that there's no reason not to have it in your hand luggage. So have it there. The immigration officer at the airport will stamp your passport, and they usually stamp it for 3 months. And what that means is that you're allowed to come into Ireland for 3 months. If you're staying any longer than that, you're expected to register with the Garda National Immigration Bureau and get a residence permit. Now, most students would not wait until the end of the 3 months. They do that maybe in September or October. For the visa required students, you obviously know that you have to apply for a visa in order to come to Ireland, and that's called an entry visa. Now, the entry visa, it depends where you're applying from. For example, if you're applying in India or China, the chances are that the applications, I know already I've been getting emails from students saying they've already acquired their visa. They have it at this stage. Other people are looking for it at the moment, but in general, it's done in a pretty speedy fashion. The main thing is you read all the documentation carefully when you're making your application, and if they ask you for something, you provide that something, okay? If they say they want to see your bank statements for 6 months, that's what they want to see. They don't want to see large sums of money being put into the account a few days before you go applying for a visa. They want to see that you have consistent funding so that you will be able to support yourself while you're in Ireland, okay? Now, one of the things I will say at this point, which I think is very important, the immigration officials ask that you have access to 7,000 for purposes of living expenses in Ireland. Now, I found this year that a few students came in they had 7,000. That isn't enough to live on, okay? That is only enough. As far as the visa office is concerned, they consider that to be a living amount. But with the cost of accommodation, etc. in Ireland, you would need to have around 10,000 or even 12,000, especially if you're here for a full year. I would sort of say around 12,000. And I mean, maybe Prina can add on to that in a minute, just see what you think about it. So that's one thing that's very important, because students have had to go back to their families to ask for more money to keep them going for the third semester when they're a postgraduate student. All right, for those people who are coming in then who are visa required, if you're coming from a country where there are no visa officials from Ireland over in that country, if you haven't accepted your place already, you would really need to accept it very quickly, and you need to put in your application very quickly, because currently the visa office in Ireland has an awful lot of applications going through, and they are very slow in processing them at the moment. So in order for you to ensure that you're here in time for your orientation, you would really need to get moving as fast as possible. If any of you feel coming up near the time for traveling that you haven't got your visa, you do need to let us know to the international admissions or the program that you're coming into, because we have to see, is it possible for you to arrive late is it okay to arrive maybe a week late or 2 weeks late? Some programs would say yes, some would say no. So that's something that you will have to be proactive in finding out, okay? Now, for all of you who get a visa then, if you're coming through the airport, the same process happens as happens with the students who are non-visa required. But to just explain that that entry visa only allows you to come into the airport. You put your foot in the airport and the entry visa is no longer valid. It doesn't matter if it has a validity of 3 months, if the stamp says 3 months. All that means is that you can walk into the airport over the period of 3 months. After that, the immigration official will stamp your passport again for another 3 months. And during that time, you will go down to register with the Garda National Immigration Bureau. Final thing on this, at the moment, the Garda National Immigration Bureau are changing a lot of their processes around registry. So we will give you all that information when you get here. We are waiting ourselves to be given the final decision on how they're going to operate during September and October, November. So we can't give you any correct information at this time, but you will liaise with us during orientation. You'll be given lots of information about all of this, and you can come into the reception desk in the international office at any stage to ask questions, to come and ask for me if you need to have specific questions, etc. So you'll be given a lot of help through the whole process of registering with the Garda National Immigration Bureau. So I think that's mainly what I want to say at this stage, and I hope maybe it's covered some of the points. And I'd just like to refer to Prina for a minute to ask her to talk a little bit about the financial end of coming over here.
Yeah, so especially if you're coming from from a visa requiring country, I would say that carry the essential amount, not traveler's check, I would say, foreign exchange card, or have funds ready, because once you come into Ireland and during the orientation week, we'll give you information to open a bank account in Ireland. So once that's registered, when you have to go down to the GNIV card, what Carl was talking about, to get a GNIV card, you need to show a bank statement where you have 3,000 euros, minimum of 3,000 euros transferred into your account. So that is one essential thing. So you don't, I would advise not to carry a lot of cash with you, and traveler's checks is also.
Yeah, but when you have your bank account set up, you can transfer money from your bank into the bank account in Ireland, okay? So that's a good way of doing things, and that's what the bank recommends that you do, because they don't tend to take traveller's checks anymore, and we don't want you to be carrying thousands of euro on your person, because anything could happen. It's not a safe method of transporting cash, okay?
Yeah, so foreign exchange card was, credit card was my idea.
Yeah, and what about the amount of money that people need for?
Initially, if you have already secured your accommodation, for example, we would advise not to transfer any deposit or pay anything online. So, for example, if you have secured an off-campus accommodation and your landlord or your landlady is expecting you to pay from the first day you move in from the airport, when you move in with your bags. So if you have to pay your money then, so just carry the accommodation money, and because the bank will, your Irish account will be set up in 10 working days tentatively in theory. So I would advise you to just carry the accommodation money, and then you can wait for the money to be transferred from your home bank account to the Irish bank account.
Perfect, yeah. This is just a couple of other visa questions here that I just want to go through. So just this one is from Nishta, and it's in relation to turnaround times on the visa. So she says, hey, I've submitted a visa application on 16th of May and there hasn't been no change in the status since then. Several emails have been sent to the embassy. Please suggest the needful. So maybe, Carl, if you just talk about some of the how long it can take some of the embassies to process, or maybe just to be aware for some dates. I can talk a little bit about for the Indian students as well.
I'm wondering this initiative from
I think this is an Indian student. Yeah.
Maybe you'd like to just.
So, well, in terms for Indian students, the official the official response from the embassy is it will take 6 weeks to process your visa. So my advice to any students coming from India would be to have all of your documentation correct. So I know some of you are just waiting on your final results, or maybe you're waiting on English language exam results, and that's fine. There's no problem with that. But have all of your other documentation in place so that when you receive your final results, you'll be uploading them to your application immediately, and then you will receive the full offer from the university, and then you will accept it. So that will be your acceptance letter for the visa office. If you're receiving your results in July, or if you're receiving your English language results in July, that's fine. Your visa will still be processed in time. If you are receiving results in August, if I know some undergraduate students are receiving some results in August, then I would advise you to apply for approval in principle. But if your results are going to be available in July, then I would say just wait and then make your application, a full application to the visa office once you have your final results. Yeah.
Okay. Outside of the countries like India or China, if your documentation has to come back to Ireland, at the moment it is very slow. This is the reality of the situation. We have been checking on it, and we've been in touch with the visa office to see if things will improve, and maybe they will improve over the next few weeks, but at the moment we don't know. And it is a case of, and this is why I mentioned earlier, if you have an offer, accept it as quickly as you can, get your documentation all together and apply as quickly as you can. And I appreciate that there are people who are only getting their results, etc. in August. And look, that is a difficult situation. I would say apply, but be aware of the fact that you might not get your visa in time if it's a case of getting results in August. And so we just have to see how things go, because we're making representations to see if the processes could be speeded up a bit. But at this stage, we just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Also, in terms of one thing I should have mentioned, in terms of for your visa, you will have to show that you've paid at least €6,000 for your tuition fees. Once you've made this payment, you can contact student.payments@ucd.ie. This is the email address for the fees office in UCD, and they will generate a detailed fees receipt for you for visa purposes. So that's kind of the best way of obtaining the receipt for your to prove that you've paid your fees for your visa. So that's something just to bear in mind as well once you've made the payment before you make your application for your visa. I do see some students asking about if they have scholarships, will this suffice for the visa application? I would say only if it's 100%. Outside of that, Carl, would you agree?
Yeah,
you'd have to pay, even if you have 50% or a smaller scholarship.
You pay your 6,000.
Yeah.
Because they want to see that you have enough money. Remember, if you get a half scholarship, there's no evidence for the visa people that you actually have enough money to pay the rest of it. So I just suggest that you pay that up front. Actually,
just speaking of scholarships, I have a student, Kelvin, who is asking, he's one of a very lucky student who has 100% scholarship, and he's wondering, does he have to pay any other fees like examination or application fees outside of accommodation? So yeah, you're correct, Kelvin, you only have to pay any accommodation fees and living costs. So your 100% scholarship is 100% tuition fee scholarship. That's what your scholarship will cover.
Just make sure that you show clearly, that the letter shows clearly that you have 100% scholarship. And that's for tuition. That would be very important that they see that.
Yeah, if you've already paid some of the fees, if you were securing your place on the programme, it will be refunded to you. So even if you were awarded the scholarship afterwards, there's no problem with that. The university, once you're here, we'll be able to refund it to you. So there's no need to worry about that. So I have a student, Melissa, who is asking, if I wish to find a job in Ireland during my studies, is the GNIB card sufficient to allow me to work, or do I need to submit a separate set of paperwork?
No, so what you have to do is, first of all, anybody who has a GNIB card, stamp 2 it's called, and so if anybody is only here for one semester, you get a stamp 2A and you can't work. But most postgraduate students are going to be here for the full year, and they'll get a stamp 2. That means that you can work 20 hours per week during term time, and you're allowed to work 40 hours during particular months of the year. That's, at the moment, it's May, June, July and August, and between the 15th of December and the 15th of January. They may be changing that to June, July, August and September, but it's it's being looked at the moment.
Mhm.
You need to get a PPS number if you secure a job. At the moment, the PPS office is looking for people to have the job secured prior to issuing a PPS number. However, anyone who has a scholarship and requires to get a scholarship and will be getting it through the UCD payroll, if there's any money, if you're getting money for your living expenses other than tuition, you will also need to get a PPS number. This is what's it called? Public. I can't even think what PPS stands for now, but it means it's like a social security number in the United States, and it's how you do all your taxes, etc. in Ireland. So we can give you advice on that. You can't get it before you come here. You can't open your bank account before you come here. So we can give you advice at UCD International Reception around all of those matters after arrival. Okay.
Perfect. Thanks, Carl. So this is another question around living costs. I see there's a few questions students are asking in general. How much is the cost of living in terms of accommodation, food, I guess essentials? But this is more in relation to the visa. This is a question from Vicky. I'm not sure where Vicky is from. And Vicky's saying, I've booked Glenamina residences, which costs €11,000 up until August. At the time of visa application, should I consider my living expenses as 11,000 or the standard amount should be considered as mentioned by the embassy, i.e. 7,000? So maybe Carl would speak about how that's the minimum that the visa require, but
the
for
visa
in general
office require is that you have 7,000 in your account, or that you can do a pay to study where you put 7,000 into account and it's held there, so the visa office can see that you have 7,000. That's for getting your visa, but for the purposes of living in Ireland, you need to have the 11,000. Now you could have 7,000 in your account first of all, and then you could get more money in as different payments for the accommodation come due, because obviously you have to pay up to 11,000. And I think realistically, you should look at, at around, I suppose, 800 anyway a month, maybe. Maybe some people will. Everyone spends differently, but for food, because you're going to have to provide your food, maybe some books, maybe some clothing, warm clothing, for example, if you come from a hot country. So you would want to be thinking about maybe 500 to 800 a month for spending money as well for all of these items for your living expenses. So you need to factor that in as well. So in your case, with 11 and 5, 12, 7, you should be thinking about 19,000.
Perfect. I think that's a very realistic. It's better to have additional funding than to be worried about funding and paying bills when you arrive in Dublin. I know there's a lot of questions about accommodation. I will get to those as well. But just when we are talking about visas, Giovanni has asked a question. Hello, what are the required documents to bring to UCD? Is it transcripts and the IELTS, the English language certificate? So maybe, Carl, if you just talk about again the documents, especially for immigration, it's the same kind of documents that you're going to need, and to make sure, I guess, to have those in your hand luggage. Anything that's important to really have that with you in your hand luggage.
And in some cases, you have to bring in the original documents for verification at the student desk.
Absolutely.
And so you have all these things in your hand luggage. You won't be at the airport, you won't be asked maybe for very much. Maybe the offer letter will be enough depending on the immigration official. But it's always useful to have them there. And you may need to go over to the student desk at some point for verification of your documents. So have them available as well at that time. It's a good idea to make copies of your documents as well, and maybe keep the copies in your main luggage that's in the hold of the airport, for example. Have a second copy. And I'd say the same while we're talking about that. Make sure to make a copy of your passport and have it in a separate place to where your passport is, and all your travel. If you have health insurance, for example, which you need to have, because when you're going to the immigration authorities to register, they're going to expect you to have health insurance. When you even apply for a visa, you need to have health insurance. And there's information on our website about health insurance companies that you can use if you don't want to get health insurance at home. Okay, there's some very good deals, in fact, so you could have a look at the website in relation to that.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. So we might go through some of the off-campus accommodation. So there's a good few questions here. So a question from Amelia. I was planning on flying out to Dublin in late August to find accommodation before the start of the programme in September because I have had trouble trying to do so from here in America. Is this a reasonable plan?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I would say. Maybe Siobhan, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about off-campus accommodation? And some students have asked, are there any supports provided by the university, or how do they go about securing off-campus accommodation?
Yeah, I'd say it's a reasonable plan coming over in middle of August to try to find accommodation. There is services available in UCD. If you go to the residential services office or you email them, they can help you find off-campus accommodation. They can't exactly put you into accommodation, but they can give you assistance and direct you, I suppose. Direct you to websites. I'd suggest looking up websites like myhome.ie and daft.ie. So if you just Google renting in Ireland, you'll be able to find some websites. I'd also recommend, if you're coming here, have like 1 or 2 weeks accommodation booked for yourself in like a hotel or a hostel. And so come over here. I'd say don't pay for accommodation before you view it and before you touch down in Ireland and actually get to see the place, make sure it's like the pictures and it's close enough to the university and you're happy with it, and then pay once you're here. So yeah, I'd say. Yeah,
I think that's very good advice from Siobhan. I definitely would say just wait until you come to Ireland to look for the on-campus accommodation. I think a lot of students are connecting on social media on the Facebook page. So we have a Facebook group for UCD International Students 2016-2017. I see students already connecting there and looking for accommodation together. I don't know, Prina, what's been your experience or friends' experience looking for accommodation? It just takes a little while. I think you do have to make appointments with landlords and letting agents. As Siobhan said, the university doesn't place you into accommodation, but we'll give you listings and we'll give you, if any of the university is in quite a residential area, if any of the landlords alert us to accommodation available, we do alert students. But maybe you might talk a little bit about accommodation and how you found looking for accommodation in Dublin.
I would say what Siobhan said. Do not pay. First thing is do not pay from home. And the websites like Daft and myhome.ie are very easy to connect with your landlords back from home, and you can set up set up appointments for you to move. I would definitely say you can book youth hostels we have in city center. They are fairly inexpensive. So it would take like 2 or 3 days for you to find accommodations for first few days. You can just go around, try to understand transport from your accommodation to the university and so forth. That being said, and the other thing is Facebook is an excellent means to make your roommate. When I was trying to study in UCD, I met my roommate on Facebook and we found a PhD student who had a spare room here near UCD. So that's the best way to meet, and you can always get rooms together or houses together. So, and please make arrangements to have reference letters from home if for the landlord or landlady will need a reference letter from home. And usually the amount to be paid initially before you move in is 1 month's rent in advance and a security deposit, which is also equal to 1 month's rent, which is refundable at the end of the lease. So you should have funds or arrangements made to pay that when you move in, and the reference letters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. This is another accommodation question from Ratul, and Ratul is saying, can you list some places to look for off-campus accommodation? How far is it advisable to live from the campus, Belfield campus? Well, firstly, I would say Dublin is a very small city, so it's actually it's quite convenient no matter where you are in the city centre. There are a lot of transport links. Maybe Carl, you want to talk a little bit about this, even if you want to mention some areas or talk about the different transports. And we do have student discounts rates on all of the transportation in the city as well.
Yeah. I think, and Karina said that a bit already about, it depends, if there's a good bus route that's running in towards the UCD campus, you can be a good bit away from the campus. There's a bus route called the 46A, for example, and that is probably the best bus route in Dublin. It travels past the UCD campus, the Belfield campus, and it's any area on that line. So this is something that you can do when you come over here, is to try and get a feel for these, and you can certainly come in and talk to our reception about that as well, and also talk to attached to the UCD residences is an actual off-campus accommodation office. So and there's also, they have what's called an accommodation pad. So I'd say have a look at the UCD residences website, and you'll see information about that. But when you're here, you can actually go into the staff and ask them to help you and to talk you through the different areas. We're living in an area that is quite an expensive area. So accommodation can be quite expensive around here. But if you move a little bit further out from this area, the accommodation gets a little bit cheaper. So it's worth, I think, exploring all that. But it really is a matter of when you're here to be able to just have a look, talk to people, talk about the bus routes, etc. And we also have other modes of transport, for example, the DART train and the Lewis, and these are also, they go fairly near to the UCD campus, and you can be on one of those lines and actually make your way over to the campus quite easily from them. So and as Lorraine said, Dublin really isn't a huge city. It's quite a manageable city to get around, especially because the transport is quite good now.
I would like to add on to that. We actually have a Belfield bike shop where students who are interested in renting bikes or buying brand new bikes, when you can buy that, you can fairly live far from the city, from the campus, and you can cycle into the campus. We have, as I said, bike shop, and they help you in getting all these, and it helps in the bike shop actually services your bikes also, so it's a one-stop solution to all your transport issues.
And you can also sell the bike back at the end then when you're leaving as well. So for those down there, because some of you may be on the Blackrock campus, and that's where the Smurfit Business School is. Now the DART train runs through Blackrock, so that's actually one that you can look at if you're down there, because you could be on any line along the DART, you could be in any area, and that DART gets very speedily into the campus in the morning. So that's certainly an option for anybody down in Smurfit Business School.
And undergraduates, if you're in this campus, you will be in this campus. But if you get the DART, you can get it to Sydney Parade, and there's a shuttle bus that runs during term time, which is just €1, and you just can go back, up and back, and it's quite handy. Otherwise, it's about a 25-minute walk, but it's very well connected, and you can live anywhere along the DART line and get into UC very quickly.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I do see some questions. Some students are saying, can I live on campus maybe one semester and then move out to off campus with friends if I want in the second semester? We wouldn't really encourage that. I think if you've secured on campus accommodation, you should stay there for the year, because it could be difficult to find accommodation for 6 months or 9 months. Normally the leases would be for 1 year, depending on the landlord and letting agency. So it just to save maybe some headache for yourself as well, if you have to have that additional activity to do in January, if you're going to do that. Plus you will also lose your deposit if you do that. So I wouldn't encourage anyone who is living on campus to think about moving off campus. I'd say Carl would agree with me on that. It's not a good idea. Yeah.
Actually, to flag it with the postgraduate students, especially for this, they have a summer term as well. So the accommodation on campus are for 9 months, if I'm wrong.
But
you can have it for a year.
You can have it for the year.
Yeah.
So it's just make sure that it's whether for a year or not.
Yeah, and it's worth staying on, when you're a postgraduate student in the summer, because accommodation in Dublin tends to get more expensive in the summer months as well outside of the campus, because there's a lot of tourists come to Ireland. So if you were trying to get something for a few months in the summer, it'd be quite hard to do that.
Yeah. The only thing I would say for UCD students, we are quite lucky. The university starts back a little bit earlier than the other Irish Dublin universities, so our students do have the first choice of the accommodation in the city. So that's one good thing about the university starting a little bit earlier than some of the other institutions. I'm seeing a few questions around bank accounts. So maybe, Carl, if you would answer this question. So students saying, how and when can I open a bank account in Ireland?
Now, a bank account is actually quite simple to open, but you can't open it until you arrive in Ireland, okay? So what you need to do is, during the process, before you come over here and after arrival, you're going to be updating your student information system. You're going to be registering, you're going to get all your information in terms of your addresses and contact details, etc. So it's important that all of you put in your Irish address as soon as you know it. You can then run off a form, which is a certificate of attendance. And if you go with a certificate of attendance and with your passport over to the bank, and the Allied Irish banks actually have a branch on the Belfield campus. The Bank of Ireland, which they're the two main banks in Ireland, and the Bank of Ireland is just off the main Belfield campus, just across the road. For Smurfit, the Bank of Ireland is just down in Blackrock Village, which is a few minutes walk from the Smurfit. And you can go in with the certificate of attendance and your passport and your student card, if you have it, into the bank, and they'll open a bank account for you. What happens then is that it takes around a week to 10 days, and during that time, you will get sent to you in the post. So that's why they need your proper mailing address. They will send you your PIN number in one envelope, and they'll send you your ATM card in another envelope. And then your bank account is set up, and you can start transferring money from your home into that account, and you'll be able to run off a statement from that account when it comes to the time for you to go into the Garda National Immigration Bureau.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Yep. There is a question from Giovanni. I'm not sure where Giovanni is from, but Giovanni is saying, I've already paid the first €500 deposit. When will it be possible to pay the first instalment fee for the he's studying supply chain management in Smurfit? So this, anytime you have to pay before September. So the first installment of your fees will be due before September. So that's, yep, there you go. But you do have different options. So you can either pay through bank transfer, and the details, if you go to the UCD fees page on the UCD website, you will see a list of the options, and you'll also see the details for the UCD bank account if you wish to pay directly. Also, you can pay through the pay to study method. This is an online payment system that you can use. In general, it's a little bit quicker than waiting for the money to transfer from your bank account to the university's bank account. So that's why we do encourage students to use the pay to study, but it's your decision. And then you will see, you will have a fees receipt generated on your account then afterwards, so you will be able to see that. But the answer to that is, and if anyone else is thinking about when they have to pay their fees, you can pay anytime now that you've already paid your deposit and you've secured your place on the programme.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Except
kind of
if
that.
your fees are required, you better pay 6,000.
Yes, well, yeah. So there are some students who are asking questions about orientation and what happens during orientation. Maybe everyone could speak a little bit about orientation activities. Siobhan, could you maybe talk just again about the airport welcome? I know we mentioned it earlier, but it's quite important maybe just for students that are arriving during orientation, just so that they know. I've had a few students say to me, why is the airport welcome not for 2 weeks? And the answer to that is we don't have staff who can be at Dublin Airport all the time. So we've tried to look at days when we know a majority of students will be arriving to Ireland. But maybe Siobhan, you go through what happens at the airport welcome in Dublin.
Yep, so the airport welcome is taking place this year between the 3rd and 5th of September. So the 3rd is Saturday and it goes on to Monday. And we'll have UCD staff in the airport in arrivals. and you'll see them. They'll be wearing the UCD jumpers or t-shirts, and they'll help you. They'll help welcome you and direct you into how you should get into the city centre or to get to UCD. If you're arriving late at night, they won't be there, but as far as I'm aware, they won't be there late at night.
They're there till 5 o'clock, so 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. Yeah.
So if your flights are getting in after that, or say later than that, I'd recommend looking up the air coach. You can get a single ticket to UCD for about €9, or you can get a ticket into the city centre with air coach for €6. You can buy these online, or you can buy them at the airport or on the bus.
Or you can get a taxi. If you don't want to get the bus, you can get a taxi.
Late, you know, if it's sort of 12 o'clock at night, we kind of say to you, maybe get a taxi.
Yeah.
Taxi 30 or 40 euro.
And it's not customary to tip the taxi driver, just so you know. It's perfect.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Maybe we might talk a little bit about some of the events that are taking place during orientation week. So in the first week when you're here in the university, it will be this will be the time when we will do the campus tours. We will do the tours of Dublin City Centre. We will show you where the library is on campus. We'll be hosting a number of welcome events in UCD International. Maybe Carl, if you want to talk about some of the President's welcome, and we have international student. We've different welcomes. Maybe you want to just mention something about those.
Yeah. So orientation week is from the Tuesday to the Friday, the main orientation. There's different events go on then for the next couple of weeks as well, but main one is then. Our big one, I suppose, is on the Wednesday evening. We have the President's Welcome, and we usually have about 700 or 800 students coming to that in what we call the O'Reilly Hall, and the President is there to welcome all the new students, as are all the members of the international office, and there's usually maybe a little reception afterwards, and it's kind of a nice event. It's called a scarfing event as well, because everybody gets the UCD scarf, which comes in very handy during the winter months when it's cold, because you can wrap yourself up in it. But it's a nice thing because the scarves, everyone puts their scarf on, and it's a nice sort of ceremony, if you like. Throughout the week then we'll have different events. There's going to be a cafe, an international cafe. We have a very nice global lounge where people can sort of chill out, hang around, play Jenga and Monopoly and all these board games, or do Xbox and so forth. So there's lots of little activities. We'll also have a number of the services in UCD coming over on the Thursday to talk about the IT services, the library, etc. So as well as that, depending on what type of student, if you're a postgraduate student, for example, we have usually the following week an event, either a lunch or an evening get together for the postgraduate students. Then within your own different programs, there will also be a series of orientation meetings. I usually go along to Smurfit and give a talk around immigration and settling in Ireland and cultural adjustment, etc. And so there'll be all of the different courses, I suppose, all the different programs that you're all attending. They will have some form of orientation on as well for people. Usually as well in the second week, we have a big event. It's a big reception in the evening that all the international students are invited to as well, where there'll be some sort of nibbles or small pieces of food, plus maybe a glass of wine or a soft drink, whichever you prefer. So that's something as well. And throughout the year, really, there's always events. There'll be shopping trips to IKEA. There's also trips around Dublin to get to know Dublin. There'll be some trips down to Glendalough, which is a famous place just outside Dublin as well, you know. And then all the societies, UCD has a lot of different clubs and societies. I don't know if your own universities would have had those, but it's where groups of people get together to usually have a good time. There's the International Student Society. They'll offer lots of trips down the country during the year. There's the Indian Society, which will celebrate all the Indian festival days, every one of them. Don't they, Lorraine?
We do, yeah, we definitely do.
Yeah. So
Prina, did you join any clubs or societies, or did you? Yeah, what was your experience?
Student Society, the first one. I would say that's the best society to actually see a lot of Ireland. I went to trips of Glendalough, you mentioned, Cliffs of Moher. I went to Wicklow Mountains, a lot of them. And International Student Society is the best way to meet a lot of international friends, make a lot of international friends. And apart from that, there are a lot of academic societies also. So if you're interested in the NetSoc, which is like a computer science society, then there are fun societies for scuba divers or for dance societies, music societies, drama societies. So that's to mention a few. That was out of my interest. And we have Indian Society, which organizes festivals for around the year. So we have Diwali event, we have a Holi event, we have Navratri event, we have Indian Republic Day, Independence Day, and if there are big Indian matches for cricket fans, we set that up in the Global Lounge also, so you can watch it across 12 size TVs.
Yeah.
So those are fun things, and in all of these events, you get to have good Indian food if you're missing that. And you can meet a lot of current or senior Indian students who are here, and you can get to know about where you can find like Asian food stores, your spices back from home, the lentils and wheat flour and stuff like that. So you can get all of that information also.
And there's also the Chinese Students and Scholars Association as well, and they always organize events for Chinese New Year. So there's something like, I think there's about 120 different societies, and there's also clubs as well for playing football, soccer, lacrosse, all sorts of games as well.
Basically, any interest you have, if it's sports or outside of sports, there will be a club or society that you can join in the university.
We have like 100+ societies, and we have a society for juggling also, so you can imagine.
And trampolining.
Exactly, so we have a wide variety.
Okay, perfect. This is a good question from Shubham. So Shubham is asking, what do we need to carry in terms of personal essentials? Does one need to carry utensils if looking to rent an apartment, or is everything just available? So this is off-campus accommodation. So maybe if the panel would talk about what to pack, what to bring, what you don't need to bring maybe as well, things that are not necessary that you can buy in Ireland. Basically, you can buy everything in Ireland that you can buy at home. There's no need to worry about that. Maybe Carol, do you want to speak a little bit about first what to bring, and talk maybe sometimes people when they're asking this, they're asking about the weather and do I need to bring heavy clothes and coats for the weather as well. So maybe we'll do all of that in one question.
So again, obviously people are coming from all different climates, so it depends. Let's talk about the hot climates first of all. The weather in Ireland, it could be very nice when you come in September. By our standards, it could be cold by yours. And as time moves on, it does get colder during the winter months. So you do need a good jacket that's waterproof. Now, you mightn't be able to get that in your own country. So it might be a case of that's one of the first purchases that you'll make when you come over to Ireland. There's a lot of shops that sell things quite cheaply. So you can get all of these things at a reasonable price, as far as we consider it a reasonable price. It's a good idea to dress in layers. So by that we mean maybe you have a t-shirt, a shirt, and a sweater and a coat. You mightn't need them all on one day, or else you might need some of them in the morning, something different in the afternoon. So you can take your layers off and put them back on again, depending on how a day goes on. They say sometimes that Irish weather has 4 seasons in one day, and that does happen. So in that case, I'd say sometimes people arrive in with bags and bags of luggage, and they'd have 20 pairs of boots or something like that. You don't really need to bring all that stuff. You can buy Irish shoes in particular are very good, a lot of leather shoes, a lot of good quality shoes. And you can buy them over here, but just have enough sort of a range of clothes to start you off anyway. Hats are good for the winter as well, because apparently the heat goes out through the top of your head. So you can buy these pull down hats, and so umbrellas are not so good. So don't worry too much about them, because they always blow inside out. So that's why it's better to have a good coat. In regards to, supposing you're living on campus, for example, they provide you with a duvet and pillows, and but they don't provide you with sheets. So it might be wise, if it's not too bulky, to take a set of sheets with you coming over, and you can buy duvet covers and the like when you actually arrive over in Ireland. If you want to bring your own special duvet cover, why not? They also don't provide crockery or cutlery. So again, it's not a bad idea to maybe take a mug or a cup, and maybe a knife and fork and spoon with you, and a plate. But don't bring much, because when you're sharing with your flatmates, you can talk about that, and maybe get together to get some crockery and cutlery, etc. Same applies when you're off campus. A lot of accommodations off campus will provide some basic essentials, and they will provide things like a kettle and a toaster and maybe a microwave. So you don't need to bring any large things like that. Okay.
Yeah. Is there anything, Karina, maybe that when you were packing, do you have any advice, because you've gone through this process? Did you bring too much? Did you bring too little? Or did you find that everything, you could have bought everything here in Dublin? What's your advice for students?
My advice would be, as Carl said, do carry one plate, one spoon, one bowl, one fork, because the first day you land, and if you get oven food also, not necessarily you'll be able to go cutlery shopping. So for you to at least eat your food, you need your plate and your spoon. So get that in initially. And especially for Indian students, if you are sharing an accommodation with other Indian students, or you are going to be cooking yourself, I would recommend buying a small pressure cooker. So that is not easily available in Ireland, and it's fairly expensive compared to Indian standards. So carry that. And I know Chinese students carry a rice cooker. Rice cooker. They share it with their roommates as well. So you can talk about that if you have already met your roommate. So you can share your utensils. But I would advise you to carry that. And if you're coming from a tropical country, about clothing, please. She was talking about layers. So I would advise, please carry thermals as well. So that is very important, because apart from your boots and your jeans, you need to have layers on your feet as well, and woolen socks. So you will get those woolen socks, but thermals are very essential if you can get it from the tropical countries. And I would say, do not carry a lot of how do I say bed sheets and sheets, as she said. You do get all of that. So if you just, because if you're going for an off-campus accommodation, and not necessarily that will have a duvet and a pillow for the first night you stay, or for the first few weeks when you're trying to settle in. So if you can just have a kind of a pull-in sheet, or those foldable, you get those travel trekkers use. Sleeping bags, or on trekking you go, so that will be very handy for you. So,
but if you're in a hotel or a hostel, you don't need to worry. All of that will be there. You don't need to bring any blankets or any cutlery. Everything will be there. So most students will probably will be.
If you're coming in for off-campus accommodation, just have enough for you to survive for 2 or 3 days, and then you will be sorted out, because everything is in walking distance from city center.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I see there's a few questions around registration and when will I register for my modules? Maybe Siobhan, do you want to just answer that question quite briefly, and maybe direct people to the website just for registration? That might be the easiest thing to do, because it kind of depends.
Yeah, it's all on the website, and registration opens around the 18th of August, and that's for some courses, and the other courses I think open around the 23rd. So I'd say check the website to see when your course registration opens, and it closes at 5 p.m. on the 30th of September. So you have time to register, but I'd say check online
Yeah, my tip around registration would be, and for everything actually, my top tip of the day would be, please read all of the emails that you receive from the university. Every email that you receive is important. Don't think, oh, I can wait until September and kind of deal with everything when I get there in September. There are certain steps that you need to take before you arrive in September, and registration is one of these kind of practical next steps you need to take. So you will receive emails from the university. If you aren't receiving any emails, or you think you're not maybe getting the emails in August, do just send us an email. So check the website for the dates when the registration should open, and then if there's any issues, do contact us. There is actually, just mentioning that, a student, Sarah, is saying, hello, I'm listening to this while at work. Is there a specific contact person email that I can use if I have follow-up questions after watching this chat? So that's a very good question. Maybe Siobhan, you direct Sarah to some of the email addresses that she can send any questions to after this.
Yeah, you can send them to internationaladmissions@ucd.ie.
Yeah, and I would say please do stay in contact with us over the next few weeks during the summer. If there is any questions, please do contact us. You may have already been speaking to somebody in the university, that's fine. But if you haven't, and you do have any general questions around if it's visas or orientation or accommodation or registration, you can, as Siobhan said, direct your questions to that email address.
Or to the international as well at ucd.ie, because that's the general one. And, you know, particularly.
So everyone will see all of those emails, so don't worry about sending them. This is something we haven't touched on, but maybe we should just kind of touch on briefly. Shubhendra is asking, when are the careers fairs held? Is it possible to land a job during those careers fairs? If yes, do the companies wait for us to complete our respective courses? And also, what are our job prospects? So we might talk about the one-year graduate visa, and then a little bit about the careers office. Cara, do you want to start?
I'll talk about the one-year graduate visa. Maybe you might give a bit of advice, because you probably experienced some of it. First of all, one of the good things about coming to Ireland, I think, is the fact that you're actually allowed to stay on in Ireland for a year after you've completed your degree. And this is called the third level graduate scheme. And what it allows is, once you've completed your degree and you've received your results, you can go down to the Garda National Immigration Bureau with a copy of your results, your medical health insurance for the year to come, and your student card and passport and GNIB card. And you can actually get what's called a 1G, which is a graduate permission to reside in Ireland for a year. And it allows you to spend that year either looking for a job. You don't have to prove that you already have a job in order to get this. You can look for a job, or if you already have secured a job, you can start into that job. At the end of the year, if it's up to yourself and your employer, if you have one, to look at the matter of getting a work permit. This is a different thing. It's under the Department of Jobs, Enterprise and Employment, and it means that you can stay on as a worker once yourself and your employer have worked together to organise that. So this is a really good scheme, and a lot of students stay on. Particularly, we find a lot of the students in Smurfit and in computer science like to stay on in Ireland afterwards for that year and work, and some of them continue on working for a number of years in Ireland. Do you want to talk about the careers fairs?
So we actually have a career development center on campus, which is just next to the James Joyce Library, which is the main library in Belfast campus. So the Careers Development Center helps you in preparing your CV, you're preparing for the interview you have. They give you career counseling, and they actually hold a lot of career recruitment fairs around the year. So the two main fairs they have is a science engineering fair, and the other is business and management fair. In that, they invite both national and international companies which come and hold that stand, put up their stand where they talk to students who are currently studying in UCD or a recent graduate from UCD, and they have positions like internships, graduate programs, or full-time jobs based on students' experience and level of education. So they have all of that. And as Sarah, was that Sarah? So as Sarah, you asked, yes, they rate, for example, if you're currently studying in your city, the employer gives you a contract based on your condition saying that you will get 2-1 or 1-1's grade, and the start date will be only after you graduate. So yes, they wait until you finish your degree, and it will be conditional on that. And so yeah.
Until you get your results.
Until you get your results. So you can start working after that.
Yep, I think I think for the university does provide a lot of supports for students who are looking, if they do wish to stay and work. Not everybody wants to stay in Ireland, but some people do. But I would say you have to attend all of these events. You have to attend any events run by the the Career Development Centre, or by the schools and the colleges individually. They will start from the very beginning of the year. Some students will say to me, why is it starting in September? We've only just started our program. The reason why this is because the companies are very familiar with UCD programs. They know what type of students are graduating, what kind of skills they will have when they graduate. So they already know what you're going to be kind of highly skilled in before you finish your program. So that's kind of one of the reasons why this starts straight away. So I would say if you are looking to stay, you must be very, very proactive in your search for securing a position. It's not going to happen automatically. You do have to put the effort in and attend all of the events, and you will be notified by email throughout the year as well. So that's something as well just to bear in mind. It'll be advertised quite a lot around the university. Any fairs, I know you will receive emails as well. I've got a couple of emails just in relation to immigration again, Carl, and they're from EU students. So I had an Italian student saying he's come here for masters. His girlfriend will be joining him for the masters. Is there anything they need to consider for immigration? I had another German student who's saying, what documents does he need to bring? Will there be any immigration implications as well? Maybe just for EU students, if you want to just just to talk about that, Carl. Yeah.
No, EU students do not have to register with the National Immigration Bureau. So if you're coming through the airport, I mean, everybody going through the airport gets their passport looked at, even an Irish person who's coming back from a holiday. So I would have the letter showing that you've been offered a place in UCD in your hand luggage. I think that makes sense. But all they're going to do is look at your passport, and then you'll go through. So you don't have to go near the National Immigration Bureau. And just while I'm saying that, if there's anybody from Canada or the United States, for example, or from other countries who have Irish passports as well as Canadian or US passports, they can use their Irish passport coming through the airport. And that's a good idea to use it, because it means then that you don't have to register with the National Immigration Bureau, and you don't have to pay, because we haven't mentioned it so far today, but it is €300 for your National Immigration Bureau card. And so if you don't have to pay that, you're lucky. So just keep that in mind.
And actually, to add on to that, if you're a non-EU EA country, you will need a multiple entry visa. So the GNIB card you get stamped for 1 year, which is valid for 1 year, is only a single entry. So for example, if you're leaving Ireland to go to UK or to go home also for Christmas, you need a multiple entry to come back. Especially for Indian or Chinese students, you need to get a multiple entry stamp visa, which is €100 extra on top of €300 for your GNIB card. So please note that down.
And just to add on to what Prina said, this is really important, and this is something that I'm going to be emphasising when I'm talking at orientation. For any students who are visa required, after you get your GNIB card, I'm advising very strongly that you get your multiple entry visa immediately. Some students this year decided that they weren't going to travel anywhere during the year, they didn't need it. And then something came up like a conference, and they were not able to get, in some cases they didn't get to the conferences because it can take a while for you to get the multiple entry visa. Mm-hmm. And in some cases we were trying to ring up to see could they get it, and this isn't, the visa officials don't like you doing that because they want to treat everybody equally and to see each one as they apply. So I'm strongly saying you never know what's going to happen. There could be an emergency where you have to go home, or there could be somebody saying, we want you to go to a conference and will you go over in the next few weeks, and you have to apply then for a Schengen visa to go to Europe, and that can take weeks. So it's essential that after you get your GNIB card, you get your multiple entry if you are visa required.
And actually,
student.
applying for Schengen visa, you need to show proof of your multiple entry visa. That is your visa to come back to Ireland.
Yes, exactly.
So without which you would not get a Schengen visa.
Mm.
So keep that in mind.
And we will remind you about this during the year, and there are information sheets at UCD reception to explain all about the different visas, including Britain and the UK visa, which is separate as well. So all of those things are available, but just to take note of them at this point.
Perfect. Yep, that's great advice. I'm conscious of the time. We might just have time for one or two more questions. This is a student from Kieran, and Kieran is asking, how do I get a phone connection, a SIM card, and do we need to provide any documents? So maybe Siobhan, you might talk about, we have a promotion with the Tree Network, I think, for Orientation Week this year. Maybe you might speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, so between the 5th and 9th of September, Tree is a phone company in Ireland. And the representatives from that company will be on campus around midday. So you'll be able to go and get a SIM off them. The SIM is free and you can put it into most phones. If the representative will be able to tell you whether your phone is compatible or not, but it's compatible with most phones. And there's a deal for students or it's a deal just in general where you can top up by €20 and you get unlimited data, unlimited text and unlimited calls to other 3 mobiles. And then at the weekend you'll have free calls to landlines and all other networks. And that's quite a good deal for international students because you also get to keep your €20, meaning you can spend on your international calls and texts. And you top that up every month.
Yeah, there are other networks you can check out. There's Vodafone, there's O2, there's a few different networks in Ireland, but this year we are running a promotion with the Tree Network, so you can still use that SIM card, but if you wish to move to another network, there's no issues around that. There's no problem buying other SIM cards, but this SIM card will be free, which is very useful for students when you're arriving at the start of the year. You can phone home and make sure everyone knows. That's actually important, Carl, isn't it? Maybe that students do remember. We've had students who've forgotten to do that, and we've had parents ringing us. Maybe if you want to talk about that.
And I know you're all postgraduate students, but still parents have a tendency to worry sometimes, and we get phone calls where they say that their child, we'll say, has not contacted them to let them know that they've arrived safely. So that is important, and especially these days, there's no reason not to let family at home know because you have so many different forms of communication. So do let them know as soon as you arrive that you're here safely.
Actually, and apart from all of this, the minute you land if you step into UCD, you have a campus-wide Wi-Fi, if you have a smartphone, connect to it and you can immediately send a WhatsApp text or do a Skype call.
And in Dublin Airport as well, there's free Wi-Fi,
Exactly.
so you'll be able to connect
Wi-Fi.
as well. Yeah.
I'll also say about phones, you can get cheap smartphones in Ireland. I think the cheapest is around €80. You can also get non-smartphones, which you can get for about €10, €20.
If you're looking for a new phone. I think we'll just have one more question. I know there are many other questions that I haven't got around to answering. I'm sorry about that. We've had a very large response. So if you, as Siobhan said, you can contact us after the session and email in your questions. But the last question, I'll just because it's something we haven't discussed yet, from a student called Nicole. By any chance, when can we expect to know our first semester lecture timetables? So when will students get access to their timetables?
I would say once you get information on registration, so you will get all your information on UCD Connect email ID, which is a student email ID. Please look into that. You will get all information on registration. And once you have registered your all the modules, if you have elective and core modules, you automatically your personal timetable will be generated, which will be easily accessible through your student portal, through the calendar on it. And you will get all your timetable with the location of the lecture, if it's going to be in which building, which room, and with which professor, and the time included.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, that's great. I think just as a final kind of comment again, please do look at your emails from the university. We will be communicating with students for the next few weeks in advance of arriving in September. So it is important that you do note any of the emails and follow any of the instructions that are being sent out. Again, please do stay in contact with us. Email us if there's any questions or any issues. If you've any questions in relation to your program or your final acceptance letter, or if you have any questions around visas, orientation, please do let us know as well. As Siobhan mentioned, it's internationaladmissions@ucd.ie is the general email address, or international@ucd.ie. Other than that, I want to thank my panel very much for answering all the questions very, very well this afternoon. I want to thank all of our viewers who have logged in, who've submitted questions. And other than that, we very much look forward to welcoming you to UCD in September. So thank you very much.
Thank you.